This is the story of Babylon, a city that rose to unimaginable heights only to vanish completely. It was a dominant world power. Now it is no longer a city, no longer a nation, not even a shadow of its former self. What went wrong? How did one of history's greatest civilizations simply disappear? To understand how Babylon disappeared from history, we must first go back to its origins, to a time when it was one of the most powerful cities the ancient world had ever known. Babylon was situated in what is now modern-day Iran. This ancient city lay in the heart of Mesopotamia, a region often referred to as the cradle of civilization. Nestled between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, this area was among the first where humans developed farming, built cities, and created written language. Babylon sat near the Euphrates River, a strategic position that played a massive role in its rise. Why was this location so important? For starters, the Euphrates provided a steady water supply in an otherwise dry, hot region. This allowed Babylon to develop advanced irrigation systems, which made farming more productive. Unlike many places that relied on unpredictable rainfall, Babylonian farmers had a controlled way to bring water to their crops. This helped the city grow enough food to support a large population, making it a center of trade and culture. Babylon's location also made it a major crossroads of the ancient world. It was right in the middle of key trade routes, connecting the rich lands of Egypt, Persia, modern-day Iran, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Merchants, traders, and travelers from all over came to Babylon, bringing goods like spices, precious metals, and textiles, but also new ideas, scientific knowledge, and religious beliefs. This constant flow of people and information helped Babylon become a melting pot of cultures, which is why it became known as one of the greatest cities in history. Babylon was a city unlike any other. By the time King Nebuchadnezzar II rules from 605 to 562 BCE, Babylon had become the most powerful city in the known world. It had massive walls so thick that chariots could ride along the top. These walls weren't just for protection. They were a symbol of strength and a message to anyone who dared to challenge Babylon's might. Inside those walls, the city was a masterpiece of engineering and architecture. Towering over everything was the massive ziggurat, a stepped temple believed to be the inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel. The city's grand palaces and enormous gates were covered in colorful glazed bricks, some featuring images of lions, dragons, and bulls, symbols of Babylon's power and divine protection. The most famous of these gates, the Ishtar Gate, was a stunning blue structure dedicated to the goddess Ishtar, the deity of love, war, and fertility. Then there were the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The gardens were described as an oasis in the middle of the desert, filled with waterfalls, exotic plants, and towering trees, an engineering marvel that would have required an advanced irrigation system to sustain. But Babylon wasn't just about beauty. It was also a center of knowledge and learning. The Babylonians created one of the earliest forms of writing, cuneiform. They developed a sophisticated calendar based on their knowledge of astronomy. Their mathematical innovations, including a number system based on 60, are the reason we divide an hour into 60 minutes and a circle into 360 degrees. By the 6th century BCE, Babylon was no longer just a city. It was the heart of a vast empire. To fully grasp Babylon's significance and its eventual disappearance, it's helpful to compare it to other dominant cities in history. Cities like Rome, Athens, London, and Moscow have all been centers of power at various points in time. Yet, unlike Babylon, these cities adapted and thrived through centuries of change. Rome, for instance, transitioned from the heart of a vast empire to the capital of modern Italy, preserving its culture and architectural heritage while remaining a global tourist and political hub. Athens, the cradle of democracy and philosophy, reinvented itself beyond its classical era to become a thriving European capital. London, once the seat of the British Empire, evolved through industrialization and finance to maintain its status as a global economic and cultural powerhouse. Moscow, despite revolutions and regime changes, remained the political and economic center of Russia. Babylon's fate stands in stark contrast. While these other cities adapted and survived, Babylon fell into complete desolation, a haunting reminder that even the mightiest can fall if they fail to adapt or if external forces overwhelm them. So, how does a city like this, a city that seemed unshakable, vanish without a trace? Babylon, once the shining jewel of Mesopotamia, did not fall overnight. Its ultimate downfall was a slow and complex process, shaped by war, shifting empires, and the inevitable march of time. In 539 BCE, Cyrus the Great of Persia conquered Babylon. Unlike many conquests of the time, this was not a violent attack, but a calculated takeover. Cyrus presented himself as a liberator rather than a conqueror, an act that allowed him to rule peacefully over Babylon's inhabitants. Under Persian rule, Babylon continued as an administrative center, but lost its status as a dominant power. Alexander the Great arrived in 331 BCE and was so impressed by Babylon that he planned to make it one of his empire's capitals. However, his sudden death in 323 BCE left those plans unrealized. Without strong leadership or investment, Babylon began its slow descent into obscurity. By the 2nd century CE, Babylon had been largely abandoned, a forgotten relic swallowed by sand and time. So how long did it take for Babylon to go from a dominant force to nothing? From its peak under Nebuchadnezzar II in the 6th century BCE to its abandonment by the 2nd century CE, a span of roughly 700 years, Babylon transitioned from being the heart of an empire to complete desolation. This timeline is significant when compared to other ancient cities like Rome or Athens, which have persisted in some form for millennia. Yet what makes Babylon's fall even more fascinating is that it wasn't just a historical event, it was also foretold in religious texts. Long before Babylon's fall, prophets in the Bible spoke about its eventual downfall. The book of Isaiah describes Babylon as a city destined for destruction. And Babylon, the most glorious of kingdoms, will be like Sodom and Gomorrah when God overthrew them. She will never be inhabited, nor will she be a place to reside in throughout all generations. Similarly, the book of Jeremiah 50:39 and 40 states, "She will never again be inhabited, nor will she be a place of residence throughout all generations." Just as with God's overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah and of their neighboring towns, declares Jehovah, no one will dwell there, and no man will settle there. These prophecies didn't just predict Babylon's fall, they foretold its complete desolation. While other ancient cities survived or were rebuilt, Babylon was abandoned entirely. The Bible also highlights Babylon's role as a center of pagan worship. The city was home to numerous temples dedicated to gods like Marduk and Ishtar. This idolatry is cited as the reason for its prophesied downfall. For example, Daniel the 3rd chapter recounts how 3 Hebrew men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to bow down and do an act of worship to a golden statue erected by Nebuchadnezzar. They were miraculously saved by an angel, underscoring their faithfulness amid Babylon's pervasive idolatry. For believers, these events demonstrate divine judgment against Babylon's arrogance and pagan practices. For historians, they add another layer of intrigue to an already fascinating story. Now, to a pressing question. Are there traces of the city today? Located about 50 miles south of Baghdad in modern-day Iraq, the ancient site of Babylon now consists of crumbling walls, foundations of grand palaces, and scattered artifacts buried beneath layers of history. For centuries, explorers, historians, and archaeologists have sought to uncover its secrets. One of the most famous remnants of Babylon is the Ishtar Gate, once a grand entrance to the city, adorned with deep blue bricks and images of mythical beasts. Though the original gate no longer stands at its original site, It has been carefully reconstructed and is now displayed in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin. Other artifacts, including cuneiform, tablets, and statues, can be found in museums across the world, offering glimpses into Babylon's rich past. Satellite images and archaeological surveys continue to reveal more about Babylon's layout, showing remnants of its once glorious structures buried beneath centuries of sediment. While efforts have been made to preserve what remains, much of Babylon is still in a fragile state, vulnerable to erosion, looting, and the passage of time. Babylon's story is both a warning and a mystery. It was a city that reached the height of human achievement, yet it crumbled into nothingness. Was its fall purely the result of political shifts, economic decline, and environmental changes? Or was there something more? Perhaps a fate sealed by forces beyond human control? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, why stop here? Check out another of our videos. You never know what fascinating discovery about the world awaits you.